Welcome to another episode of Problem Busters. I'm joined by my co-host, Ollie. How are you?
You certainly are. I'm very good, sir. And yourself?
I am good, thank you. What is on the agenda today?
Well, today we have Eszter Ivan joining us, and she is a dance movement psychotherapist, a student counsellor, and a somatic coach. If those things are new to you, don't worry, we will explain them. But welcome to the show, Eszter.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for the invitation.
You're welcome. It's great to have you here. Really interesting things ahead to talk about. Perhaps if we just start with the framing of the problem and then go into a bit about you. In terms of the problem we're going to talk about today, folks, it is how to learn remotely. And I guess in subtext, how difficult it's been to learn remotely over the last year, and some of the things that folks can do to help students and also help themselves if they are a student to learn remotely. So, Eszter, tell us a little bit about you and where you're from and your multiple careers.
So I'm Eszter Ivan. I came 8 years ago to UK to study dance movement psychotherapy, which was actually my dream. Originally, I'm a psychologist. I trained in my country and worked there as well before I came to UK. And after that, I wanted to combine my two passions. So one was psychology and the other one was dance, because since age of 5, I know I was on stage. I used to dance a lot, and dance was something in my life which helped me to cope with a lot of struggles, difficulties, or conflicts. And I remember I used to dance a lot with my dad. So I thought that is something, the two things to combine. It will be a great pleasure to do and later to work. And I managed to do that. And then after, I did somatic coaching as well, because I had some struggling at workplace. I was close to have a burnout because financially I supported my studies working in hospitality industry. So I thought, why not to...
That's hard.
Yes, yes, why not to study something which I can help myself with and later others. So this is where the coaching is coming from.
And what is somatic coaching, Eszter?
So somatic coaching is coming from the mindset that body and mind are connected. And I see the person, the client, as a whole. I don't see separate. So there is not always just talking. There is always sensations in the body. There are always postures, gestures, reactions, which I might notice, but maybe the client doesn't. So my role is to raise the awareness, raise the body awareness of the client to these, to spot, and then for themselves to acknowledge. Because my approach is that the body is an advocate to initiate change or transformation. And if I initiate change on a body level, it can help to change on a behavior level or an emotional level and on another way around as well. So everything has an effect on the other. So, for example, let me give you an example which maybe makes it easier to understand. That if a client share an experience and I notice that they don't breathe, they holding their breath, actually I'm the one who can acknowledge that and ask, have you noticed how is your breathing now? And they give me, oh yeah, I'm holding. So I initiate, maybe just start to breathe, just to breathe in and out. And with that flow, the tension can go. And this letting go the stress that can help to ease the topic, the emotional tension, and can be more relaxed, and maybe more thoughts are coming into the process, and then we work along. And this is not just with breathing, but it can be muscle tension, any sensation on a body level.
And just prior to the call, you happened to notice this about me when I was asking you, what is somatic coaching? And I was holding my breath, wasn't I? And now all I can think about is breathing. What is interesting is when I breathe in, I stand up straight. And that's like an instant change.
Yes.
What happens if you breathe in now, Jonathan?
Much, actually. I'm sitting down.
That's probably because you're a great breather.
No, I'm sitting in the chair. That's forcing my posture to be very good. But yeah, it's quite interesting about the breathing stuff, because immediately when you said about picking up on cues and things that clients have, one thing is probably a bit left field, but was like poker players and things like that, giving away tails and stuff. Have you ever had like a poker player approach you and ask, do I do something?
No, it would be interesting. Yeah, I would be interested where that end up and what kind of conversation would be as a result of that.
That's wonderful. So, because I really didn't know what somatic coaching is or what it is. Correct me if I'm wrong in understanding, it's just a case of you can pick up on the signs, on the physical signs that a client exhibits whilst they're sort of speaking or interacting day to day. And that will give you a clue into what could be affecting them, whether it be like anxiety or stress. Is that right?
I think, yes, this is the starting point, actually, where the whole process starts. Because as soon as I'm picking up, giving as a feedback, my aim is that the client will do it for themselves. For example, if they start to notice that anxiety is arising, or there is a situation with their manager and there is tension going on, then they can notice, oh, okay, so I'm now holding my breath, my muscles are more strength, okay, so then maybe I'm gonna take a deep breath, and it's just a couple of seconds, and they will be there present in that moment in a different way. And it's for their beneficial way of being, or the way they can more regulate their emotions and anxiety or anything what arises. So it's around body awareness, self-regulation, more being alive in the moment and in the present and fully experience it. And but at the same time not being overwhelmed with it, or for example, if someone always comes to me that they are always really tired, exhausted, and just they are noticing that they are just doing too much. So I'm helping them to see the body signs way before it happens and to stop there, because maybe they just don't notice, but their body shows their signs, but they consciously, their mind ignores it for some reasons. So I'm helping them to prevent what they are suffering, and they can feel easy to get back the control and to regulate. This is around that.
So does that link into when you talk about reconnecting with our body's wisdom? Is that what that means, or is fantastic?
Yes, absolutely.
That's pretty yeah.
Yeah, I do it. So we do it as a professionals as well. So in that space, I'm always connecting with my own body too, and listening to the signs, or where I feel tension, or where what I feel, because this kind of somatic informations can help me to help the client as well. So it's a both way process. It's happening in relation and in everyday life as well. It's happening. So when some clients, coaching clients, has issues like, oh, my colleague moods always has an effect on me. Okay, so let's work on how you can keep more boundary, how you can feel your own body rather than feeling someone else's emotions, or have an effect on you. So these are the things which as a somatic coach I can help with to improve.
And how did that lead you on to dance?
So that was the first thing. That was before all of these. And dance movement therapy as well, before all of these. And then when I learned coaching, I felt that it's really verbal, something always happening on a talking way. And then my field is not about much as talking, more non-verbal way of communication and finding way to heal. So I was thinking, okay, what is the field in coaching where I can use my other knowledge of the body? And then I found out, yes, somatic coaching is existing. And that's why I applied it all. But dance was always there for me and always has been there for me.
Yeah, that's wonderful. It's like a fusion of what you love doing, like dancing, and what your sort of your training, your passion is as well. So that's really good. Linking it to sort of every day, the current situation we're in with regards to COVID, is there any sort of somatic approach you've taken for things such as sort of grief counseling and things like that?
Yes, so I'm a grief recovery specialist and I'm following a specific method to process grief. And I apply somatic approach and my way of thinking of body-mind when my clients needs help with regulation, self-regulation. So for example, they don't feel ready to wake up in the morning, they don't feel they cannot manage a day at work or at home without crying, or it's really difficult for them to go home from the workplace because there is not anymore the person who they loved.
So just so I understand, self-regulation, is that just activities that you do without thinking every day? Could you explain what self-regulation is?
Yes. So self-regulation is around our nervous system is reacting on the emotions which we experience on stress. And we can feel really easily overwhelmed by it. So when you cannot stop crying or you are shaking, but through techniques, for example, touching your own skin or noticing the chair you are sitting in and you are touching it. Or my favorite one, I have two favorite ones. One is noticing the way you walk, which can be really grounding and regulating for yourself, or just lying on the floor and feel your weight against the floor. And through these, the experience or the main aim is to feel the support what your own body can give to you. And this is always there. So it's not something which is an external or you need to buy or something. It's with you all the time. If you're comfortable and you like to use it, some people use different things. Some people like this one, other one. They can connect with their bodies and they feel more ease and a bit more calm. And they're still gonna cry and they're still gonna miss the person and the pain will be maybe less, but just part of their life more. But there is a process, so it can be processed rather than feeling overwhelmed and losing control in that. So this is what I mean by self-regulation or helping to regulate nervous system, their body.
And it's interesting because, unfortunately, at least the culture that I grew up in New Zealand, there was this idea of, that saying, don't mention the war, as in, let's not talk about the thing that's worrying everybody because it's upsetting. Let's just put it away. And that just seems to have caused so much grief to people and also prevented the processing of grief, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And this is something around, this kind of society message around being alone. And yes, we can leave the person alone, just need space. No, I don't think so that grief should happen alone. In a supported community way, it's actually processed quicker and more naturally. And yes, grief can be shared and everyone is allowed to share it. And this is part of my process that first I work with these kind of messages, what we learned through our life or through society or what we heard, and to see, okay, how these were just not working through the process. What would have been more beneficial or what the person or the client can give now for themselves to help the process.
Sort of touched on the process.
Mm.
Do you think it's time to see what we can address with regards to the problem?
Yeah, totally. It's just
Awesome.
So interesting, right? And
it really is.
Well, Esther was
Thank
talking,
you.
I was just thinking, the lie on the ground thing,
Mm.
that definitely is a thing for me, especially on a carpeted floor. And sometimes I just feel like I've been carrying too much action that day and I just need to lie down. And interestingly, it's also both mine and my fiance's favorite part of a yoga class.
Oh,
lying on the ground at the end. Maybe that's connected, right? That feeling of being supported by the
I'm sure.
ground and not having to hold yourself up,
Yeah.
But yes, you are right, Jonathan. Let's move swiftly on. So let's talk about your current role, Esther, as student counsellor. Tell us a bit about that, and then let's apply that to what you've observed in the last year of lockdown with students.
Okay. So I work since now 3 years as a student counselor at Irie Theatre Company. This company was founded by Beverly Green in 1985. So their aim is to promote diversity through dance and this dance course. And this bachelor course, I'm the student counselor for the students. This lockdown was one of the biggest challenge was that most of them didn't feel comfortable to access my service counseling from home or from their environment where they live. And I wasn't that much surprised at the beginning of that, because this is a private thing. You don't want anyone to hear what you are sharing. You don't want your parents or even if no one is, it's your home. Even it's more difficult to leave that behind after a session when you are going back to the same space. Biggest challenges which I noticed on the first lockdown part. On the second one, somehow they get too used to it. And it was way more easier. I offered group sessions as well, not just individual ones. And there they were open, or they found their own way how they can share more or how they can feel more safe, or where they can go to feel safe to share. Someone, for example, had a session from their car, which was the best place to be. No one was around, no one listened. So actually it offered creative ways of coping with the situation. And for them as well, what I noticed and with other students, because they're special dancer students, is this was an extra pressure on them. They still had the same things as before. They still had the same issues in their life, what's going on. And also another big challenge is for those students whose career were kind of questioned during the pandemic. So they were in a crisis, either in hospitality students or any students in the art world or other areas which were really hit hard. And a lot of them kind of questioned their career path. So I felt my role more like keeping the hope for them instead of them, and trying to find a way how to help them to reconnect with their initial passion, what they had when they choose this career path. These are really big, I think, issues and challenges for them currently.
What was quite interesting was the hope of the choices of the career path and the doubt. What was your approach to sort of trying to, I don't know, because if it's with hope, I don't want to use the word reaffirm and say, okay, you should stick to your guns. But
No.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
But what was your approach to sort of addressing that?
First of all, I really gave them space, a non-judgmental space to share why they are questioning it, what is there for them. And then I asked them to remember back why they choose. And most of them had the chance to reconnect with the joy and with the fun and with the happiness, what it used to give. And I think this is something key, which I would give as a tip, that to reconnect with that happiness and joy, what it used to give, rather than just the problems and the issues currently. And you could see the change on their faces when they started to remember, and their whole body felt different. So I could connect to that. Do you notice the difference? So what does stop you now to feel the same still? So this is what I mean, to keep the hope and to give them back the hope. And they still can decide they're not going to do it, but at least think twice of that decision.
How did they handle the delivery of a dance course remotely?
The company is really supportive, so they tried the best what they could. I mean, some of them moved their furnitures, so I sewed upside down beds and chairs on the side just to have more space. I mean, the way they managed, they tried to do what they could. and to use technology to be more creative and using video in a park to make recordings. So yeah, this way what I noticed they tried. But they are not fun of being online, that's for sure.
Did you find there was less of an impact of it being online? Or was it just the same as being in person?
I prefer being in person. I can work on the same level until a certain point online because I don't feel safe to work with trauma or trauma-related materials. But this is not my job at IRI with the students. So I felt comfortable. For me, the challenge was if I had to do a hybrid one, a hybrid where I had a monitor, the one or two students or more, and then I had students in the space as well, and I was in the space too. So that I found really challenging, just because of the attention, this shared attention at point. Actually, I need to admit, but I forgot the monitor that there are still someone. So the person was shouting in and we were laughing. So it made it easy. So that's difficult.
We've all seen that in meetings when there's one person remote on a laptop, right? That person never gets a chance to contribute as much as the people that are in full 3D around the table.
Yeah. But I need to give that space for all of them.
In society today, for people listening now, what advice could you give them to help reconnect to themselves? And
I think one of the most important thing is whatever they are doing, they be in the moment and really experience it and focus on that. So if they are eating or drinking or just noticing their clothes on their body, really experience it. So this is one thing. The other thing, it's important to do something what they enjoy, and it can be anything, the tiniest thing, what gives joy.
Do you know, I remember somebody saying that to me many years ago, Jonathan. They said something like, if you really don't like the person that you're having a meeting with and you really can't get away from them because, let's say, they're your main customer or something like that, then just don't imagine them naked. Don't imagine them on the toilet, which are two kind of old 90s ideas, but just find something about them that you like and focus on that. And I was like, haha, that's such a ridiculous idea. That would never work. But it always does.
yeah.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what you mean, Esther? That in that case, I'm focusing on the fact they just have really cool hair, or they've just done something really good, or that's a great presentation, and they still made my life difficult, and I'm still annoyed, but it was still a great presentation.
Yeah. Yes. This is something like that.
I'm guessing with sort of that advice, would you say that's probably sort of the easiest advice that, say, myself and Ollie can actually give to other people, such as our partners and colleagues and friends? Just focus on your clothes, focus on just living in the moment, being in the moment when you're there, to try and sort of ground you and reconnect.
Yes. And really listen, feel, experience what is going on there for you and in your body. So it's something more around not to think about it, but really to sense it, because this is how you can connect with yourself. And also what I usually say, we have a whole body. Don't forget certain body parts, because it's easy to forget. For example, our back. I think sometimes it's really useful to remind ourselves that we have a back. Yes.
And actually, that's the essence of a scientific inquiry, isn't it, really? To just notice things and then wonder why and then do something about it, right?
Yep.
All I can think about is breathing. When I'm not thinking about breathing, I'm thinking about standing up straight.
Yes.
I'm just thinking about feeling the chair underneath me now. So,
Yeah.
Oh, this is pretty cool. I love it. So, in your experience, how has this helped people during the first and second lockdown? Your advice. What is the significant changes you've seen in people who apply these techniques that you've sort of coached?
I think easiness. So the way I can feel like from the storm or for feeling really anxious or like really lost, is something gives them a kind of peace, an inner peace, yes, to be okay, to feel okay within whatever they are experiencing or how they are experiencing, and to help them to connect with something which they know, or they know it's theirs. It's no one else. No one says about them anything. It doesn't depend on any information or whoever thinks what. So it's really under their control, that they can feel that, they can sense that. It's giving back this feeling of control as well, which I think it's really important.
Yeah. Me being me, of course, we're in lockdown, but the whole, I like the food and taste and just enjoying it. So I
Yes.
think I've had the most diverse diet I've ever had from lockdown.
That's really good.
Yeah, I've gone through a very different taste. Just things I'll test. I was really ashamed to say, I think it was a few podcasts ago with one of our guests. We were talking about, it's not sauerkraut. What's the other version, Ollie?
You mean kimchi?
Yes, kimchi. I've never had kimchi before. First time I had it was in lockdown after that.
How good is it, right?
Yeah, it's really good. It's really good.
Yeah, those Koreans know what they're doing.
Yeah.
It's basically the same concept of a certain kind of cabbage that's been put in a brine and left to ferment, right? Like the same process as gherkins and so forth. But I think the kimchi style obviously includes the all-important garlic and chili, right, Jonathan?
Yeah. Yes.
I will try for
Yes.
sure as well.
Yeah. It's
You know,
really
something
tasty.
that came to mind when you were talking, Esther, is I remember a coach saying, I think it was a sales training course, when they were talking about getting in the right state of mind where you want to call someone and offer them what you have. And that getting into that state of mind being the biggest part of doing this job, the hardest part, if you like, the biggest hurdle. And one of the things that they said was, remember that emotion is energy in motion. And if you stop that motion by tensing up and trying to ignore it, then that energy will get stuck and you'll end up needing a really expensive massage. And I remember everybody laughed, but I think there's some truth to that.
Yes, there is. Yes. Because that emotion needs space to get processed. You need to feel to get through it. It's not going to last forever. It's going to pass. But if you ignore it, it's going to come back. It's going to be bigger and growing and everything. So yes, there's something called what we say to stay with it, stay with the emotion and really experience and feel it. And then it will go and ease. It's not as easy as it says, as I say it, even for me sometimes, but
Yes, you know, something else that came to mind is, what advice would you give to people who want to help their friends and loved ones in the same sort of way? What are a couple of things that we could do for our loved ones?
it's a challenging question because the way I do is I'm telling them about my experience, why I'm doing it. For example, about the breathing or the walking, or, oh, I tried lying on the floor and it felt so great. Would you try as well? Yeah, more like inviting them to experience it together rather than, I'm not an advisory person who would give an advice, rather than just telling them, oh, maybe you need to try this. And no, let's do together. Let's try out, see why I enjoy it, why I like it. Maybe you're going to like too. So more coming from this together, experiencing it. All these, what I mentioned before as well. This would be my advice.
Yeah,
I like that.
That's good. I like that too. That's how I got into yoga. Yeah, that's that sort of play into, we were saying earlier about the feeling the emotion and staying in it. Is that the sort of process that goes in sort of dance movement therapy, where you stay in sort of and use that emotion to express yourself and physically?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. So in dance movement psychotherapy, actually we help to express these emotions with movement and dance. It can be any type of emotion, any struggles, anything. So for example, sometimes I invite my students to express me movement, how they feel, because it's going to show me way more. It's going to tell me way more than they can tell with words. And for them as well, things can come up because our bodies restores more information more memories, what we can process, or what is aware of, what is available for us. And this movement, at the same time as it's changing, it's going to change in ourselves too. But this is a way to express and to process, definitely.
That's amazing.
I tell you what, I definitely feel that. If I think about times that I've danced around and how I felt at the end of the song, it's always this kind of feeling of alive and happy, being really good, right? Actually, Jonathan has a story to hear because, as I understand it, you had dance classes as a kid, right? Which is super cool.
Yes, my mum is a psychologist. She also did a bit of, she was a child psychology. I think she specialized bilingual children. And which is hence why I speak a bit of French, eh? and my little sister, she went to French school all the way up until she was in secondary. But yeah, so she noticed I was really shy. I wasn't going, I loved books, and I was kind of like, I like sports and stuff and team sports. I would never be the person to really engage and start a football match. I would be in the football match, I would love being around people, but I wasn't very talkative. And she got me to do some drama classes. I think it was at Stagecoach. So we went some drama with my sister, and then she took us to dance classes. So we would do sort of like, like hip hop, reggae, and R&B dance, and all of that. So we'd do that, and almost on a weekly basis, and that sort of got me outside of my shell, where I was now really talkative. You know, she plopped me in the middle of France and I was still talking to other children with my limited vocabulary. Yeah, so it really helped. It's quite
Do you know
funny,
what? My mum sent me to drama classes with my sister when I was young, and I don't remember not liking it when I first got there, but she tells me I didn't. All I remember is how much I loved it. And there was this one thing that we did. I don't know if you had it as well, Jonathan, but they called it the machine. So you had a whole lot of kids and you'd say, okay, now you start doing something. And they started pretending that they were twisting and turning. And you just keep doing that. And then the next kid comes along and they're just going to keep moving their arm like it's a piston. End up with 12 kids making this moving machine.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I loved it.
Oh, yeah. That's good.
It is. I can relate to that as a child too. So that's really helped me to find my identity as a woman, as well, to feel comfortable in my body and to kind of accept and being on the stage, being seen. So there are a lot of things around that too. Yeah, I can definitely relate how it.
Could you just tell us a bit about that? Because something I think about a lot is equality, particularly gender equality. I particularly think about the things that aren't me because I don't understand them because I haven't experienced them, right? So I remember really clearly when I was about 13 or maybe 14 and my little sister's 3 years younger, I remember being at the swimming pool and noticing people noticing her for the first time. And that like the moment that my childhood ended. I remember the way that people were looking at her as her body changed.
Yes.
And I remember how that, interestingly, affected the way that she walked. So she's very tall, and so she kind of, and I hope she doesn't mind me saying this because she will listen to this, and I love you and I respect you, but I think this will help other people. She just sort of stoops a little bit to appear less tall. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Was that, do you feel, perhaps due to her being seen in a different way for the first time?
Can be. I mean, it's the best to ask her about that.
I will.
Yes, I mean, from my own experience, speaking about myself, yes, definitely something around. When as a woman, my body started to change and I couldn't process yet, but I noticed others' gaze and noticing, and then I felt the shame start to hide. And I remember I didn't wear like really pretty clothes or things what would show my shape. No way. I had t-shirts covering, jumpers, everything. And then dance helped me to find a safe way to show it. And in a properly covered, but still in a kind of appropriate, protected way where I felt that this way, yes, they can look at me, but I'm okay with that. And I think, and I have clients who I work with still for after long years, they still are struggling, for example, to wear a professional business costume. or to be, they call it to be pretty and visible, because shame comes to it. Yes, it's all around as well, unfortunately, with shame.
It's just so sad, isn't it?
Yeah. But this is on the other way around as well. So I don't say that this just only happens with girls or women. It can happen with any of us. And I think it happens as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I imagine this didn't happen to you, Jonathan, because you're a big strapping lad. But I definitely was late to grow up, and I was late to grow out, if you know what I mean. And I remember I remember looking at my friends around me and feeling like they were all mountain peaks and I was a valley in terms of vertical height. And then I remember one day when I kind of caught up, and I was like, oh, okay, now we're kind of the same again.
I have a similar story actually. I was pretty short. Everybody had a growth spurt before me. I was still like maybe a year or two, probably around a year behind everybody else. I think taller and a lot bigger. But there was quite a few of us. I have an interesting story about that actually. A bunch of bullies used to steal our football. They're from an ethnic background where they sort of mature a lot earlier. So being my friends, we're mostly Caribbean or African. So we're sort of late bloomers. So we had no facial hair, still a bit small. And then we caught up in our early teens. I think we were roughly around 15, 16. We caught up and just got really big, really fast. And there was no more bullying after one incident. That was really good because they literally picked on us for almost, I think it was like 2 or 3 years. And we were just too small to do anything. But yeah. That's an interesting story, but yeah, it is. Yeah, I understand that. I mean, I come from a tall family. All the women in my family are quite tall. So my little sister's a bit taller than me. Oh, I love you. Get my disclaimers out. Love you, Hannah Louise. Get my disclaimers out. Yeah, she's taller than me, and I have a few cousins who are really tall as well, over 6'2", I think. And you do notice sometimes different situations that they would change the way they carry themselves. Obviously, now we're a lot older, and I think you come to terms and you have these coping mechanisms, or you understand yourself and you understand the world around you a bit more. But it's still something that people battle with every day.
And one of your sisters, at least, is a really successful performer, right? So,
oh yeah.
Maybe we'll get her on the show and ask her if there was a kind of a conquering of fear and a sort of accepting of self that came along with her starting to perform. What about when you apply these kinds of thoughts and ways of helping people and coaching to your other role as a head of people? It's for the Gregorian House Hotel, am I right?
Yes, yeah, it's for... Actually, what happened there is I started to work there 8 years ago as maid and a waitress. And then the owner, later my general manager, they both knew what I'm learning, what I'm studying, and then I became supervisor, food and beverage manager, and I found a program about supporting employees' well-being, and it was all for free. And I asked them if I can do that for the hotel and for the employees, and they said yes, of course. So this is how it all started. And after, actually, I left this manager role, and they created for me this role that exists before. It's a kind of HR role and looking after the employees' well-being. Definitely, I use this approach with them and there as well from a different angle, more around stress management, communicational issues, or how to handle difficult situations, even with guests or between each other. I feel really lucky that actually they come on board my profession.
That's got to be good for all the people there too, right?
Yeah.
Have you seen people flourish having that support?
Yes, I saw changes, definitely. And also they know they can turn to me and I can help them where to turn to, because I really need to be aware of my boundaries there. Like I'm there, not a therapist, I'm not a counselor, but I know where to turn to or what to do on the first level, or for example, how to handle a situation if someone going through domestic violence, what to do, how to speak with the person So it means a lot. It really supports my confidence in that role. And I can help my manager and the owner as well, how to find a way to support them still in an appropriate way within that framework of an industry.
I think they're lucky to have you with the skills and the interests that you have in that
Thank you.
role. Because even just as a normal manager who's not an HR or head of people manager, it amazes me and humbles me how many normal human dilemmas are brought to me with the hope that I can help. And there are times when I really feel unqualified to be able to help people in the way that I would like. Do you ever get that feeling, Jonathan, that we kind of have this, there's almost like this client trust I just didn't expect, but I'm really humbled by?
Yeah.
And we want to help our teams, right? So it seems to me that the head of people role is particularly interesting because it's not just the helping that person and the listening to that person and supporting that person in that moment, is it, Esther? It's also talking to the team and helping the team outwardly and publicly, isn't it?
Yeah.
Quite a role to balance that with the internal need to manage people for a profit.
Yes, and also to manage that kind of discussion between the two. So to have the discussion between the management and the team. And because I think this is something really interesting to notice. I see both needs and both expectations. Okay, so how to find a way they can understand each other's needs and expectations and to make the most out of it. So I have this kind of mediator role as well. Sometimes I feel too.
I wonder if that role sometimes is a little bit like a parent in terms of they go to mum, they go to dad. You know what I mean?
Yeah, can be.
Super interesting. I think we should probably move on to the sharing section. What do you think, Jonathan?
Yeah, so this section, Esther,
Yes.
is mostly this is the part where we get to know just a little bit more into what you enjoy in terms of entertainment and books and projects and stuff along those lines. This is a doozy to start off with. Who do you most look up to in the world?
Actually, it's my mom. Yes.
Love you, Mum.
Yes.
Hey, Mum.
She's a really inspiring, clever woman. So she was a single mom. She always worked hard and she has a career in philosophy of art and in university field in aesthetics. So she wrote 10 books. So she's a really clever and amazing woman. And I think the way I look up her is just the determination. And she always fights for what is right for her. And this energy, unstoppable being, I think this is what I always admire in her.
I get the sense that both of us have a little bit of that, right, Jonathan?
Yeah. Yeah. I love listening to people who study philosophy as well. Philosophy of science and other things. It's just always like a different perspective on things as well.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a good way, but I always grew up in the why question, kind of getting everything from all different perspectives. Which I think the way I think now, it's really, really gave me the base.
That questioning nature. Yeah. So what about books? What books have you read lately that inspired you that you might like to share with folks?
So I was thinking a lot about this, but I think I'm going to share one which I just recently started and I got from my friend. It's At the Pond, Swimming at Hampstead Ladies Pond. Actually, this pond exists in London and I like to swim there. But since lockdown, I couldn't. And this swimming thing it was challenged. And reading through this book, I can really relate and connect because there are short stories about the experience of being there and how it is, what they feel. That is the one which I picked.
Beautiful. You know, I have a friend who is probably listening, and she actually moved into that area of London from Australia and worked in the local bookshop and cafe. And I remember her describing it to me and saying, I live in London. And I was like, that's a big city. How's that for you, being someone who's experienced country in your life, right? And she said, well, it's funny. I found this pocket in Hampstead and there's actually these ponds, and there's a pond that's just for ladies to swim in.
Yes.
And that is not the way that I imagine London to be at all, right? Quite a special pocket, isn't it, with a community?
It is, yeah, definitely. And this book really gives back the feeling.
This is me making space for you, Jonathan. Jonathan might be waiting for his little one to stop crying in the background.
And also, he probably doesn't know how to work the mute button. I've done the old trademark where I thought I muted my mic and I didn't. So
So we should say that most common sentence, right? I think you're on mute.
Has to be top 10 phrases of all time now. What's the weather like? So, the onto projects and movements that have most excited you.
Yeah. So actually there is one, which is my research project. I'm commissioned with Moving Pieces, which is led by Charlie Blowers, and I'm gonna investigate their approach in supporting people's quality of life who are living with medically unexplained symptoms. And currently we are recruiting participants for this art and science-based research. But this is currently the most excited about what will emerge and how will this be. But this is a long-term project.
Where can people find out more about the project?
They can contact me via my website as well, and also on the Moving Pieces website too. There are more information, if anyone. Yeah.
And hopefully we'll have the link to your website in our show notes. Any other links, and you're welcome to do a guest post on our website as you would like.
Okay. So thank you very much.
Can you hear the seagulls in the background?
No, but I really do wish I was in the scenery.
If only my microphone wasn't so good at controlling noise. They are currently deciding right behind me and above me on the roof who is going to nest with who. And it's quite an important life decision for the seagull community. And they're making quite a lot of noise. So. But yes, we will certainly have those links on the show notes. Is there anything else you would like to share or that you're working on, Esther, before we let you go?
No, actually, I think I shared almost everything. You noticed all, and you mentioned all, so thank you very much.
Well, thank you for being on the show. It's been really interesting, and this is probably one of the shows of all of them, Jonathan, that I'm going to think about as well.
Yeah.
While I'm standing up straight and breathing.
It was a pleasure.
Awesome,
so thank you for tuning in, folks. Don't forget to subscribe. And Esther, thank you for being on. And folks, we look forward to another episode, another day. Have a good, safe evening, morning, lunchtime, wherever you might be.